self-sacrificing patterns. This is a really big theme and requiring a deep excavation process, step after step, layers after layers, because as all programming here, they are multi-layered and they are embedded within each other. So they entangle and intertwine together, which makes deprogramming just more complex as well. In general, due to the confusion that this entanglement can create in us, right? It's an old archetype as well that is very widespread in Christianity and religious programming as well. We find some entanglement there. Carry the weight of the burdens of others, right, for them. And in religion, we recurrently find this, this programming, which is also reinforced by the entertainment and I should say MK Ultra entertainment industry as well. Right, so as a real spirited person here, you probably have found yourself letting others tap into your energy. This makes no sense when we're talking about the spiritless, because we're letting people tapping or triggering sometimes also sacrifice programming while their needs, their stories, who they are is not even real. And when we let, spirited beings, original spark tap into our energy, there is an exchange of energy in their favor. And it is a kind of, energy vampirism that is happening. Some beings are extremely skilled at vampirizing energy and can also place themselves in your bag so you don't find them easily in your field. But other methods are even more subtle and harder to excavate when they play on the deep layers of programming that are very hidden and that are very linked to MK Ultra. That's one of the fundamental programming that we find, with the MK Ultra programs, right? And these repetitive, numerous, unconscious commitment that we are having with others are holding us heavily to others and keeping us neutralized, right? If you feel like you have very little space in your life, we really have to see, to look deeper at patterns repeating in relationship, and sometimes it's not going to be that it bothers you really much, like that it triggers you, but it just plays on your programming repetitively. So therefore it does derail you. And, it's 30 minutes per day or here and there, an hour here, and all in all, it's energy and focus that you don't have for other tasks that don't trigger this kind of patterns within you, right? So I've been excavating this pattern for probably a good decade, I would say, because I've been exploited and used many times, trying to save others the trouble to do their own work, but of course it doesn't work like this. And it was based on my programming. I would answer their needs. First, I was answering a lot of needs from spiritless beings because I've been deeply trained, and my MK Ultra is being really reinforced in school by a really high percentage of spiritless and simulation beings that were around me. And later on, I answered the need of spirited beings because they're much more tricky to navigate. And they can trigger definitely much deeper programming. So answering their needs in so many episodes, stories, confusing my own self-sacrifice and the abuse that I was going through for love or for friendship or a real bondship. I can tell you this is not where we're gonna find the deepest, truest, most genuine bonds. Well, you find a very strong handling energy when you are recurrently being sabotaged in what you are creating here. And it is challenging to wake up from the hardest truth, and the spirit is asking you to even go deeper than this, and to change your patterns, right? Because a lot of reels are being used to perpetuate user reprogramming, which is a low frequency attachment, and to trigger that into others in relationships subtly or not so subtly. Right? And you will find that when you're accepting to play by the terms of others, not realizing it has a deep training cost for you. And this programming is very automatic, keeping you in loop and loop and loop, you know, because it hides from you, and it hides pretty well. I do struggle to find these layers repeating in different ways, because every real person has their own skill and it's never gonna play the same. It is a balance to find, every new day that we have here, this balance between what we feel we can share or contribute and the need to recenter and replenish, and to have this space that we need to grow, not busy with the work of other people. These programmings and sacrifice does die immensely to save your programming. And Messiah complex, they are, because they are very hidden, they are tricky to navigate. And they are quite a derailment, and that's why it's important to keep on dismantling them and working on dismantling them in our lives. With time, the programming gets clearer and clearer, and it gets more easy to identify it, that is once again at play. This ties a lot to victim consciousness that plugs right in to that. The great sense of disempowerment that is very widespread here, and tricky alters to navigate as well, who are very convincing in this suffering. Many relationships have a sacrifice, a people pleasing, a submissive, or a shame and guilt component. In groups as well, you often have to sacrifice your own personal truth or path for the sake of the group consensus, which usually has become a hive mind space. And you find yourself self-sacrificing to stay in the relationship, not being able to express your authentic truth and where your boundaries begin. It no longer works if we have identified the programming that is active, if we have looked at it, and if we have worked on deactivating it, not answering from that place of programming anymore. Right, so you have difference of levels here between everyone who had a spirit, and we all refuse to do the work to some level, to a percentage. But you can be very, very dedicated to radical deprogramming. and go as fast as you can. And this can be faster or slower than other who have spirit here, right? But some do grow at a much more constricted rate, stagnating. The memory wiping is not helping and can create more frustration in the progress that we can see ourselves making here. And usury and exploitation are done on many levels, right? We can find also that we have severe implants and wounding that is linked to that. The sacrifice patterns plug right into that as well. We can be conned by our programming, and we often are. But unfortunately, how it works here is that the matrix system as a whole, the engineering, the MK Ultra programs in general, they are using all of this to trigger, to derail, to extract the spirited essence out of us, and to keep us busy and distracted as well. Being brought back into that drama triangle where dynamics are heavily toxic there. These are deep hidden programs, and they take years to uncover in their most subtle layers, mainly in the context of relationships. The MK Ultra entertainment industry is perpetuating this idea of sacrifice. There is a great deal of suffering from finding yourself controlled, handled, used consciously or unconsciously, exploited, and ambushed in these layers of programming. You have to know your inner setups. And it's a process of refining the deprogramming journey, as it's multi-layered, with a lot of softwares embedded with each other. And I've worked immensely on this overly compassionate programming that is also very linked to people-pleasing alters, through which we can be easily accessed if you're not working on reintegrating them. So it's about uncovering the root of what's really happening, what's really taking place here, because it's all internal in triggering programming. True service is challenging to attain. You have to heavily deprogram from ego-based and self-serving patterns. And this includes subtle layers such as sacrifice, guilt, and shame programming. We are not in true service when we are acting from sacrifice programming, when we are being exploited, when we are being used for what we can create. And we can ask all contracts that are seated in sacrifice, trauma bonding, or people-pleasing patterns to be revealed in plain sight, to be able to identify them, to be able to work through them, and to purge them if necessary. Relationships that are playing on this programming are used to handle our time, so they are used for time handling massively. They are one of the best distractions that this game is coming up with, and they are derailing us they are slowing us down and distracting us from real impactful action.